Welcome to the TNC Random Fandom podcast. We are here to have fun and talk all things pop culture, collecting, and nerd culture in general. Make sure you join the conversation during our live stream with our most excellent hosts, Craig Borden and Tommy Mock. Let the shenanigans begin.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of TNC Random Fandom. First Sunday night in a little bit, but Tommy, how the heck are you doing? We had a hell of a day today.
Well, first of all, I'm doing all right. I'm actually drinking hot tea because, I was emceeing and judging a cosplay contest today. As you know, you were there, and Jabba the Hutt, by the way.
That was a heck of a time.
It was fun. It was a good time. Always a good time at cons, and glad to be able to bring the podcast to the cons and getting our message out there, getting our friends, getting new listeners and getting new friends, and having them interested in what kind of content we put out there, and making them the showcase. Just like today we have another Tommy's Friend episode, Miss Kate Schmitt.
Wow, thanks for coining that guy. Appreciate it. Hitting me right off the bat.
Batting 1,000 on the guests. There you go. Ha 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 ha. Kate Schmitt. We are going to bring. So I know Kate Schmitt. I met her through dance, through the Flint Hill Dance Troupe. She was actually part of the troupe before I got started into it really full on, and she had come back a couple of times, maybe once. To just go to one of our practices and just be a part of the group again. She's always going to be a part of the Flint Hill Dance Troupe whenever she wants to be a part of the Flint Hill Dance Troupe. But yeah, she's part of that community over at the museum and everything. And we just, we kind of hit it off. And how she found us as far as our podcast, she had put out kind of like an all points bulletin. Give me a podcast to listen to. I need something to listen to while I'm at work. Now, I was just kind of nonchalantly saying, well, we got the TNC Random Fandom podcast. Why don't you try it out? And she has been a fan ever since. And it's fantastic to actually have her. You know what? Just bring her in. Just bringing
her in. So anyway, Kate, how the heck are you? Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good. How are you guys?
Very good. Thank you. So, I know you recruited some of your friends to watch or listen to the show tonight, right? Correct?
Yeah, they might show up. We'll see.
All right, cool. Well, I don't mind.
They do.
Yeah, we'll be monitoring and making sure we're policing the chat section. So thank you very much, everybody. Yes, I invited everybody in that can of worms already, because we got a couple people already in. So what are we talking about tonight, Tommy? Would be the first question. We got Kate here as the specialist for a certain fun product that we always liked. So go for it.
Yep. So tonight's episode is going to be about the one and only Monty Python and Monty Python's Flying Circus, which was the show. And I believe that came out maybe in the BBC. I don't know if that's like the main channel, and then they came out with the subsequent movies like The Life of Brian and what are a few Spamalot.
The most holiest of grails.
No, the Holy Grail. There you go. There you go.
Meaning of life.
The meaning of life. So
yeah.
Kate, first and foremost, let me ask you this question, and we're going to pick your brain, and if you go off on a tangent, by all means, go off on a tangent. This is your fandom. We want the spotlight is on you, so don't screw it up because we want to keep our listeners.
Especially when she's on here, she's number one listener. It's kind of like, okay, we got one listener down tonight. She's here.
So I would have to ask you now, when we were talking to you before, and you were talking to me prior to, you had said that you were a fan of like British television shows that aren't Doctor Who. And so what spawned this love of Monty Python and all things Monty Python?
So Monty Python was the first show I could sit and enjoy watching with my dad. It was our quality time. And then we started quoting it with each other. So that's how we bonded, because he doesn't talk. But
oh, really?
We could quote it together and have a 40-minute conversation of just Monty Python quotes to each other. So I grew to love it for that. And then we got into other British shows, like, I don't know if you know Top Gear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we started watching that. So that's kind of, father-daughter bonding time. And
oh, that's awesome.
And then it stuck. Yeah.
And then it just kept just snowballing from there, huh?
Oh yeah, it's avalanched into this British video.
Well, that's great. I do think that there is something that everybody always needs that with family members. And right on the point, that's me, my brother, and my dad. And my mom has never understood the stupid movie quotes that we throw back at each other. It's things from Tommy Boy to Monty Python to whatever thing you can humanly possibly think of. That was family time. All of us, all four of us together watching whatever stupid movie we could find. That was how it always was. So that's really cool that it's the same thing with Monty Python that you got to start that off with.
Yeah.
So do you belong to the ministry of the silly walks?
Oh, yeah.
That is a good one, too. It still kills me because watching that one, how John Cleese and all of them were able to keep a straight face through that whole thing. It just makes me wonder how many times they actually had to record it because it just constantly got weirder and weirder, and the way he pivots and then does the weird walk. And it was so fluid. It was just wild to me. Go for it.
Yeah. So as far as the show goes, is there anything that stands out the most for you when it comes to the show, like specific skits, or is it just overall just the wackiness of just absurdity that is Monty Python?
Well, the show. Funny story of how I found the show. So my mom, she's not in our Monty Python fan club. She likes clean TV.
Oh, okay.
So she didn't know what Monty Python was. And I found the show because she went to Salvation Army when I was like 20 and came home with the whole series on VHS. And she's like, is this the show that you and your dad watched that you liked, that movie? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, thanks.
Oh.
Then we watched it. She hated it. She was so mad.
She comes into the room. Are you watching that again?
What is this?
It's something completely different.
Yeah. She would come into the raunchiest sketches too, and I'm just like, yeah, thanks, Mom. But I mean, I like the whole thing in general, but my favorite sketch was like the cheese sketch, the cheese shop sketch, dead parrot sketch.
Oh God,
it's hard to get better than a dead parrot sketch. Comic gold.
Is this? Are these some of these sketches that we should probably be looking up and like posting so people can see it or bringing it up on the screen? Because
anyone who
if I could find them, that would be the problem. Like we were talking about before the show, Apple's the one that seems to be holding all the keys on all that stuff right now. And just to be, that person, I don't want to get sued. Well, we'll relink them after the show to what our top 10 or whatever is going on here, because there are a lot of them. Like you said, that VHS set's a good, foot long, isn't it?
Oh, it's like
a third of a meter.
It could fill a case. There was 3 VHSs for a season.
Oh wow,
that's what it was.
That's right.
There was a lot.
Because I'm pretty sure my grandfather has that same set, and that's the one thing. Same thing as what you were talking about with your dad. My grandfather is the most blue collar of blue collar guys. He won't speak unless spoken to, or he has that perfect thing to say. But you get him watching Blazing Saddles with the bean scene, or you get him watching Monty Python, it's just ripping and roaring.
Oh yeah.
So it's good stuff. And he'll be celebrating his 91st birthday in the week.
Oh, nice.
So get to still continue watching Monty Python with.
But no, I love the humor of Monty Python too, because nothing's off limits. And it's all in good fun. Like nothing. And it's just, it was my way to unwind because I used to have a really stressful job.
Mm-hmm.
So I could come home, have a shot of Jameson, and just tune out. You didn't have to pay attention. And
yeah, it never changes every 7 or 8 minutes after a sketch is over with, and it just goes into something new and goes from there. There is something to say to that unwinding at the end of the day, though, because I'm that same way. My wife likes watching a lot of serious shows, and I come home and I'm like, I can't watch that right now. It's not going to happen. So having something to just cheer you up at the end of the day. Maybe it was a little the Jameson, too. I won't say it too much on that.
It was an Irish-English blend.
Yes, there it is. Good stuff.
Little TV.
I have a similar sweatshirt when we went to Ireland. So yep.
There you go.
So Kate, now we often do like top fives, and we do because in the way that this came about, and you probably know from being a super fan, and I will call you a super fan, because a lot of people will say, oh, that's in my top five, or that's in my top 10. So we kind of put people on the spot, and we ask, what are your top five? So what is your top five Monty Python skits from your vast knowledge? So you probably can be like, oh, I want the lumberjack one, and
Lumberjack's a classic. I had a friend play that song in a bar for me once. That was the best.
That's perfect.
Oh yeah, I was like, this is magic. This would have never happened in real life, but it did. Top five sketches: Dead Parrot, Spanish Inquisition. That's a classic. Lumberjack song. Oh, there's one where they're self-defense against fruit. People with fruit.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one.
Self-defense against fruit?
Against someone with a banana.
Yeah. And he's killing them all, right? That was John Cleese, right? He's like dropping like literally a metric ton on somebody, and then
as the 16-ton block comes down on someone, promise you won't kill us.
Why do people going back to this class? What are they paying for every week? He's got to be broke.
Oh, yeah. And then there was one, the flying school, where this guy wants to learn how to fly, and he walks into an office, and the guy's hanging off the ceiling on a wire. And he tells the guy to stand up on the desk and jump off and flap his arms and stuff. And the guy's like, you'd have to watch it, but like, it's hilarious. He's like, I wouldn't do it justice. Never. I was going to try. I won't do it justice. But yeah, the flying school is also.
Well, before we end this episode, we're definitely going to have you sing the Lumberjack song all the way through.
You do not want me to sing. You lose any listeners you have.
Oh, God.
So go ahead, Craig.
I don't know if I'm able to or not, but I did find these in a bunch of these in an article, quote unquote, the best Monty Python things for an article from The Guardian. And I do have some of the YouTube clips. One of them was the silly walks. One's the Spanish Inquisition. I don't know a couple of these other ones. I'm surprised.
What are some of the shorter ones that we might be able to pull up?
That's what I'm trying to find the links on them, but you can keep talking while I'm digging here.
So Kate, because this is like, we got to make sure that we're keeping this filled with her. So Kate, now you said that this is something that you bonded with your father. Now, is there anybody else in your family well, obviously you said your mom is like, no, but is there anybody else that holds this, this love for Monty Python besides you and your father?
So me and my dad are my only family.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But because of Monty Python, my buddies at the bar that are significantly old, not significantly, they're a bit older than me. That's kind of how we got on.
Nice.
Like, yeah, Monty Python. They're like, you watched it? I'm like, yeah.
So are these the people that should be in our chat right now if they're here?
They might be.
Yes. If you're out there in the chat, make sure you chime in too. We'd love to hear from you on your favorite sketches too. Yeah, these are all like 10 minutes long. I don't know if I want to play them.
Oh yeah.
We'll eat up half the show.
So moving into the show, so we went from the show. How many seasons were there? I don't know. I'm a very novice when it comes to Monty Python. So
I know there's 5 movies.
Yeah, there was at least 3, maybe 5 seasons. I'm not 100% on that. Like I just had the VHS tape,
so moving from this television show that actually spawned movies, and I can liken it to something like SNL, where it was sketch comedy, but it wasn't in front of a live wasn't live the way that our, you know, SNL was. And then it spawned movies. Out of the, you said it was 5 movies there, Craig, or is it? So out of the 5 movies, which would you say that you never turn off? This is like my end all be all. If I was on a desert island, this is the movie that I would want on repeat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's
cliche because it's the only one everyone knows, and that's Holy Grail. I could watch that all day. But
partly because it is a perfect comedy. It's just,
and I love that. The funniest parts were because the budget was so low. They couldn't afford horses. That's where the coconuts came in. Like, it wasn't even like that's what they wanted. We can't afford a horse. Coconuts, it'll work, and it did. Like,
but that matches that. But that matches the absurdity of the comedy that it was. It's just, it's like that's what makes Monty Python, in my opinion. You know, it's like, you know, we don't have a budget, but we have a budget for coconut shells.
It's that same kind of concept. Like, you know, they're in the end of the movie and they're being attacked by the monster. And the guy's literally drawing the monster apparently live and he dies. So the thing just vanishes. It's that same level of absurdity, right? So the first movie actually was the one that we kind of stole the evening's, you know, show title from, and now for something completely different. And that was a little bit of the same kind of stuff that you really brought over from Monty Python. Really, it was the lumberjack sketch was brought into it and all these things, but it was really pulling their main core material all into one nice awesomeness instead of having to search for it. So I do have to go back to the Dead Parrot sketch, though, because I think that's the one thing that everybody knows Monty Python for. And I thought this was hilarious, too, because I actually didn't know that one was a sketch from Monty Python. It's the first time I saw that sketch. John Cleese was actually the guest on Saturday Night Live and hosting. And they did a rebit with somebody on the cast at the time of that whole thing. And then Eric Idle comes out and kind of continues it. And I'm like, what the hell is all this? Why is everybody so into it? I don't get it. So I went and looked it up and I was like, how did I miss this? Because like I said, my grandfather and everybody, I've seen the movies, completely missed on it. But the absurdity of having a person get sold a dead parrot. You got conned into it in the first place. And then you try to return it. Is the whole guys of this whole thing. I'm pretty sure it's dead as he's slamming it on the desk and going, hello, yell.
Hello, Polly.
But
that reminds me of kind of I guess it may have been a callback in the movie Dumb and Dumber where he sells him the dead parakeet.
Pretty bird. He asked him what his head had fallen off, Lloyd. What'd you do? I took care of it. It's got duct tape wrapped around it. Oh God. And then it was made the news later in the show, or later in the movie, I mean. But that kind of comedy has spawned so much. And I wanted to end the show making sure we talk about where all these guys' careers went, because this is Hollywood A-list comedy after the fact that they did all these movies, they did the Flying Circus, everything. So they became monsters in comedy to the point of spawning shows like Saturday Night Live and leading that charge. I was doing some homework before the show, and one of the pieces that somebody had said is if you were equating them to some cultural phenomenon, but just specific to comedy, it was like the Beatles of the comedy thing, British moving over,
British invasion,
translating it. Fair game. I think that's an accurate statement. So
I would have to say that Monty Python probably wasn't for everybody, especially across the pond, as they would say, because a lot of people don't get British comedy. They don't understand it. And sometimes because you have an accent, it seems hoity-toity, and you're not speaking the proper Queen's English. But
pinky out.
But I would have to say that. But we in America like to I guess what we would call snatch and improve. Now we have taken. I'm not saying we're improved on anything. I'm just saying, but what I'm saying is that we like to take things that we get. So, a lot of shows have come from Britain. The Office started out as a show, and we've taken it. And I think that first season was almost like a shot for shot remake, just with Dave Carell and everybody else from that show, which I think it's nice, but is that kind of saying that Hollywood just doesn't have any original ideas, so we have to steal it from Great Britain? Because that's not the only
noticed
show.
That, haven't we?
And Kate had basically said, she mentioned the show Top Gear. We had an American version of Top Gear that did not last as long as the British version of Top Gear. I think they finally just called it quits.
Like 2 seasons.
Was it 2 seasons?
No,
I'm talking
the
about
American
the British
version.
One.
The British one I felt like was on forever, but
right.
I love those
think
guys.
They finally finished that one. So are there, so I want to make sure that we encompass a lot of this because again, Kate, you are our resident subject matter expert, especially when it comes to the British television and everything. And I know there's a lot more that we can talk about, but are there any British shows that you've seen that you say, oh, they made an American version of this, and is it just as good? Is it better? Or where you're like, there's no reason they should have touched that?
Yeah. So yeah, the show Ghost that's on, I think, CBS now. I don't know.
Ghosts?
You know that show?
Yes,
Ghost.
yes.
That was a British show, and the British version was so much better. And
I
got so mad when I saw that we took it and ruined it. So I'm very opinionated on that. You're asking.
Yep.
So they probably have. So I want to say I kind of vaguely knew that, but you just solidified that was it. But I can honestly see that being a British comedy first, and then somebody in Hollywood was like, you know what, I need to have that show just Americanized. Yeah. So I want you to actually. That's a very good question for you. Is for that show in particular, what do you see as the differences? I mean, obviously characters are going to be portrayed in a different way, but what do you think makes the original more better than the American version?
So I think it's more of the British humor, but they don't try to make something funny. They just go with it like it's normal and it's hilarious. They don't try to overact it. Mm-hmm. So the British version, it's just people like acting normal instead of trying to
pick the low-hanging fruit for the funny.
Overact like the dramatics of it. They just go with it, and then it's like, oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Not everything needs to be turned up to like the Jim Carrey level.
Right.
And
not everything needs to be.
Office. Because Ricky Gervais playing the boss instead of Steve Carell it was like he actually should have been in that job, but he was still a bad boss instead of Steve Carell playing it. Like, how did this guy get here?
Yeah. We all worked for that person at some point.
Why didn't anybody correct me? I said Dave Carell earlier. Why didn't anybody correct me when I said that? Please. But that makes sense, because I will say, I've acted and I've done things that are, when you're doing like stage acting, you try to be more grandiose because you need to emote to the people in the back. So, and they may not be able to see everything. They can't see your expression on your face. And especially like when you're doing improv, some people, you want a scene to go a certain way, and your scene partner may take it in a completely different direction, which will throw you off. So I can understand the whole overacting thing. And a lot of times British comedy is considered pretty dry, which people don't really relate to, because we like to have everything kind of just blaring at us in the face, where sometimes the comedy is very subtle. And so that I have to take a look at that. I would like to see what the original of The Office is like, because maybe I'll like it better than because I really never got into The Office, honestly.
I purposely didn't. I watched them both. I enjoyed them both in small doses. The problem is it felt too damn real, and I couldn't keep watching it. Maybe it's because I'm in management now. I don't know, but it was like, nope, can't do it. You can watch like an episode at a time.
That's why I love some of the British shows, though, because I'm like, no, that happened. I remember a time when something like that happened, like Monty Python. Whenever there's like a store sketch, I'm like, no, there's customers like that. Yeah.
Yep. So I feel like we might have actually just had this in a recent history between you and I, Tommy. There's a famous sketch that's the nudge sketch from that Something Completely Different. And basically it's the guy that's quote unquote doing innuendos, and he keeps going, hey, you know what I mean? And he keeps bumping the guy next to him. And that was the one that hit as we started this conversation. I'm like, oh, we just had that.
Yeah. It's like, oh, God. Oh, I'll tell you, it was a day. I had to be a dad today, and that's I had to be a dad today. Protecting young cosplayers from creepy old men.
Yeah. So anyway, don't be creepy. That's rule
don't
number
be
one.
Creepy. Don't be creepy.
Not too many nudging.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I
mean? There it is.
Winks.
So I know we touched on it and we started talking about it, but the Holy Grail was, I'd say, the first thing that really transcended them to a bigger audience than just obviously the people that were in the know, the people that had been following them around for the Flying Circus and whatnot days. That was the first big, I'd say, box office big. And to that point, like I said, or like Kate had mentioned, it was under budgeted. There was things they had to cut. They had to do all these things. Nobody expected the Monty Python movie to be the biggest thing on the planet. And that is a movie that I would say, if we still had blockbusters, is still continuously off the shelf. So favorite bits, I wanted to just talk on that one, because that is the one movie that everybody does usually have some kind of influence with. Kate, is there a bit that from that movie that stood out very much to you?
The witch trial, where he's like, she turned me into a newt. I got that.
That's right. 5 seconds before bring out your dead, or after you bring out your dead, right?
And then the Tim quote, where he's like, there's some who call me Tim because he forgot the name of on the script.
Yeah, and then it turned into hilarity after that.
Like that little piece of knowledge that you have to tell everyone when that part comes up. Like, did you know? It's like Lord of the Rings when Aragorn broke his toe. So I was like, you need to tell somebody.
Do you always pull the fun fact? Because that's what we do. We're like, fun fact.
Right, you pause it.
He did not know what his name was.
One I read too recently was apparently when he was John Cleese was being asked the names or the 3 questions before you go over the Bridge of Death. He was supposed to say red, and that's where apparently the questioning thing came from. With they reversed it and the guy flies off that's guarding the bridge. So there was apparently something moderately level different written there, but because they fudged some things around last minute, they're like, "Oh, this would be hilarious."
And I think the wedding scene is probably my favorite whole scene to watch, where the guy's like, I don't want to marry her, father. I want to see.
Something tells me if we have Kate on more often, we're just going to have to run scenes with her. Just be like, we're going to run scenes all episode long. We're just going to pull up scripts and we're going to be like, all right, let's do this.
Well, in lieu of, we've already been nailed once for a YouTube copyright problem before. Not the Robin Williams bit I show, but the music playing in the background of the Robin Williams bit.
Are you kidding me?
That's what
Did we really?
About.
What'd you tell me?
Because I took care of it. I thought I mentioned it already. I apologize.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, we're gonna have to make sure we get
one of our 3 strikes got immediately removed and taken care of. So if you're watching our Icon special where we just talked about Robin Williams all night, there's about a 30-second window where the audio just goes dead.
Great.
And it's right, of course, in the part where, yeah, there you go. You know, there's
there you go.
Here.
Catch it live. We're doing it live.
We actually, speaking of live, we actually did a comment in from WebDuck05 that apparently the American version of Top Gear might have been canceled due to running out of money in a police incident.
Oh.
Ooh. There's
not because it was crap.
Nice excuse.
How come I can't see? I don't know
why that didn't come up. It came up on the actual Instagram thing that I have open.
Oh, okay. You have the Instagram up.
Yeah.
So I know WebDuck.
Yeah.
That's another museum person, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we know her.
Yes, we do.
Yep. Good day.
Give us her name. Give us her name.
Maybe some would call her Tim. But anyway, Tommy, you've seen the Holy Grail, I'm sure. Was there a comedy bit in that movie that stood out to you?
'Tis only a flesh wound, of course.
Yeah, I figured that was where we were going.
It's only a flesh wound.
I thought it was
porcelain ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't know this, but there is a Funko Pop floating around. Apparently, as a rare one, that's just the meaty stump with the head with blood kind of like gushing out of it. And I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get that for the wall.
and there's a plushie too that actually you can rip the limbs off. They're like Velcroed on, and it's awesome. And then when we were at the toy show,
yep.
Remember we saw the two figures, and I sent that picture to Kate. I was like, look, thinking of you.
They look perfect.
Yep. So Kate, as a fan of Monty Python, if you were talking to somebody who was unaware, and you knowing them, if their sensibilities were into that realm, how would you describe Monty Python to somebody who might be remotely interested in dabbling into something that was, God, what, 40 some odd years ago, maybe 50 years ago?
Yeah. I don't know. Probably, if I was being simple, I'd say it's like the British version of Saturday Night Live, but I don't.
Whereas the Kids in the Hall were the Canadian version of Saturday Night Live.
There is that.
It's hard. It's its own thing. Like, it's hard to compare it to something, but.
Because again, it's and I would have to say that it's the sketches, even just for the show, they were all over the place. Mm-hmm. You know, and correct me if I'm wrong. Were there, because again, I am a Fairweather fan. I will not claim to know anything other than some of the mainstream stuff that that you would see. But were there reoccurring characters on the Flying Circus? So where they would bring back and do rehash skits or carry-on skits?
Because there was times in it where you would see them practicing a sketch for another episode in this scene. So they'd be walking through a field and they'd be like, you just see two people off to the side, actually rehearsing a sketch while they're walking by, and they didn't. So yeah, it'd be little.
They don't edit them out. That's actually a fun fact. Did you know that you can actually see them rehearsing other scenes while they were shooting another scene?
There you go.
And then John Cleese doing and now for something completely different. He'd be somewhere else. He'd be on a beach one time. He'd be holding a pig on a desk. He'd be in a car. So that was a reoccurring thing. But I think he left at the end before they ended. He wasn't in the last season.
No, he wasn't. He did come back for the movies though. Well,
yeah.
Thankfully, because I'm not saying they would have been bad without him, but I like John Cleese.
Yeah.
But Craig, you were saying about how a lot of their careers kind of just skyrocketed them into British stardom, as well as them carrying over into American mainstream media. Is there any parts that you can see like John Cleese had done as far as mainstream American media, whether it be movies or television, that you know of that you would say is probably one of their best that they came out?
He's the villain in one of my favorite guilty pleasure comedies, John Cleese is. And I love the movie Rat Race, and I don't know why. It's just so dumb that it, like we were talking about, what switches my brain off at the end of the day, and I can just completely laugh and have a good time. But he's the huge hotel mogul that is basically just started these random people out on a race to what in theory is nothing, but all these rich billionaires are betting on who's going to get to this pile of money, supposedly in a random locker somewhere. And the stuff that he has them doing and betting on and throughout the whole thing, it just struck me as one of those things that half of the ideas that while they're waiting for this race to occur and finish, while they were just hanging out in the hotel room, to have the bets ideas that they did do were stupid John Cleese ideas. They did like the one guy was like, they had a bunch of the waiters come up and they were trying to stack wine glasses up and stuff like that, but they were not betting on how high they could get the wine glasses. They were betting on which one of the waiters would get hurt first while they were trying to stack these things up. And they got it like up to the point where it was like 2-3 people tall. And one guy falls off, finally goes, "Oh, who had Peter?" So that was one of the silly ones. Like I said, that's definitely one of his B movies, being an American or being in movies to begin with. But that one was pretty damn funny to me.
No, that was a good movie.
I'm trying to remember some of the other ones he was in, but him and Eric Idle have been in so many movies. Period. So it's hard to track off the top of my head.
Right.
But as far as other Monty Python movies, we haven't talked about The Life of Brian yet, which has one of my favorite bits in it. Is when they were whining about the Romans. I'm trying to remember the whole bit in my head. But what the Romans got that we don't was kind of like the summary of it. But that was a good movie too. There was The Life of Brian. I'm remembering the other ones.
Meaning of Life.
Meaning of Life. That was the one I was looking for, and I would think that's actually the one that has the Romans bit in it, not Life of Brian. Can't remember.
So The Life of Brian. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the one that tells the story of Jesus's brother. Is that right?
No, Brian.
That was a part of it.
At the same time.
Oh,
So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Again,
I get him confused with Jesus a couple of times.
Well, they have so many weird little bits, including an actual crucifixion scene.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I love when they're like, "He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Go away."
What was the song that's that they were singing during the crucifixion scene? Because they ended up being like an actual like everyday song. It was like basically almost like It's a Wonderful White Life kind of like thing.
No, not at the spot. I can't think of it.
I'm gonna get it.
Always look on the bright side of life.
That's it.
That's
so
it.
Eric Idle is literally nailed up to the cross, and he's singing that.
A lot of that is so wrong.
In a very, very like cheery Sunflow Bliss.
So wrong. And that's exactly what you're saying, is a lot of that stuff. I can understand why your mom was like, "What are you watching?"
But no, like I go to church and I still thought it was funny.
Blasphemer.
Nothing.
You telling me you haven't met any funny Catholics or funny Jewish people in your life? It's I think 3/4 of my childhood was watching Mel Brooks movies, so just give you that.
So John Cleese was actually in one of my, and I freely admit this, I like this series of movies, but he was in the Harry Potter movies as nearly headless Nick. He was a ghost. So I always like that. I was like, because again, I'm one of those people that when I have some exposure to it. I don't claim to be an expert, but at the same time, I know what I like. And I've always known where people come from. So I knew where Eric Idle and John Cleese came from. So when I would see them in other things, I'd be like, I know who those guys are. They're from Monty Python. I remember. But so I have to ask, because I grew up in Chicago, and my exposure to Monty Python came, actually, it was shows that they would show on PBS of all things. So PBS was a way that we got our British television shows. And so I was watching, bits and pieces of Monty Python as a little kid, and then also seeing, but we also had a UHF channel, which was channel 32 at the time. I think it's still around, but and they would show like Benny Hill, and Benny Hill was a coming of age show for me. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And Kate, do you have it? Are you familiar with Benny Hill?
No.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All I'm gonna say.
You watch Scooby-Doo ever?
Let me just put it to you this way. If you love Monty Python and you love that kind of sense of humor and that dry, watch some Benny Hill. Watch some old skits of Benny Hill, and then you'll understand why I said it was coming of age for me, because lack of better term, scantily clad women almost in every single episode. And I may have not gotten it, when I was just a, young kid, but for some reason I was glued to it at like 9 o'clock at night. There was a reason.
So I actually forgot, and Eric Idle is in this same ballpark, that him and John Cleese have been in all sorts of voice acting bits over the years for, pick a character. And I forgot that John Cleese was in Shrek 2. He was the king.
Yep.
So there was that. There was a bunch of things just like that. Eric Idle, funny enough, was in the other third Shrek movie. So there you go. There's your tie-in with Mike Myers, who is obviously Canadian, but very into British comedy. Mm-hmm. So really cool stuff that their careers have blossomed into so much more for all of them than just Monty Python. But obviously, I think that core of their comedy obviously is still there, because you can hear a lot of those same silly bits that turned into things in probably those movies for Shrek and whatnot and everything like that. Or like you were talking about with Harry Potter with a headless horse thing, or I forget.
Nearly headless Nick.
Let's say headless Nick. Couldn't go for it. But I think there's a lot to that point, that it was a lasting legacy, that people do love these bits, these comedy pieces, and they're in all these other things and they can build on it. And they're to that point. I was just reading while we were talking that the two of them also have been very good, apparently, with mentoring young comedians in those movies and everything too. So it's not just a show up and phone it in. It's the collaboration piece that we all want to hear about. So very cool stuff either way. And I'm just trying to forget some of these other movies that Eric Idle was in, but he's just been in a bunch of things. And apparently I didn't realize he was in a bunch of Simpsons episodes.
Oh God. Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. So one of my recently silly, stupid movies that I like, I don't know if, and this is one that's on Amazon for free right now, but it's one of the very last movies that Robin Williams did, but Eric Idle's in this movie too, called Absolutely Anything. And basically Simon Pegg's character gets like the power to do whatever the heck he wants, basically, and change things as much as he wants. It was almost like a British version of Click. I just think it's funny that Kate Beckinsale's in both of them.
Oh, really?
But Robin Williams, all of a sudden, Simon Pegg says, "I wish you could. My dog could talk," and it's Robin Williams' voice, and Eric Idle's like the pissed off neighbor or something like that. I can't remember, but it was a good movie. So, but Kate, is there anything in those movies anything you would like to mention about the Monty Python movies, or any of them talking after their careers?
Have either of you seen Faulty Towers with John Cleese? Where he owns the hotel.
I
think
have not.
I've seen it.
Oh yeah,
it was a while ago, right? It wasn't recent.
Was right after Monty Python, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I've seen it.
Yeah, he did a hotel, and it's Faulty Towers, but every episode they change the lettering outside of the hotel, so it's like I don't know if you guys get censored. Never mind. Some of them.
No.
Yeah.
You can cuss. We're PG-13. We can drop at least
Like,
1 or 2 F-bombs.
Flowery twats was one of them that I remember, and like stuff like that, where it's just like.
That's that subtle humor though that I love.
Yeah.
Just the Monty Python bit. I think that's where a lot of it is, right? It's in that awesome, subtle, hits you hard kind of piece, and that's where it's fun. Go ahead.
I'll be right back. I gotta plug in.
But just silly things like one of my favorite things in the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because I didn't get to do my bit back when they're arguing about how far a swallow can go while carrying a coconut. It's like, who the hell would talk about that? Or the Frenchman yelling at him from the top of the castle, and he goes, "We're looking for the Holy Grail." And we already got one.
Right.
And then they end up having one at the end of the movie. Sorry if I just spoiled a 50-year-old movie for anybody.
Spoiler alert.
What I love about that, because I can relate to it, because I remember jobs where we would be like that. Oh, we're all out. I told them we're all out.
Even as silly things with like the questions at the bridge, he asks, what's your name? What's your favorite color? All right, go ahead. And then the next guy, what is the airspeed of a African swallow at? It flies away. Brave Sir Robin.
But I think that's the biggest takeaway from all this, is that sometimes the subtleness of the comedy is what actually makes things funny, is the way they deliver. I don't know if there were ever any, like, how, like on the Carol Burnett show, which I would say was from that time frame and everything, you would see them break character and just like laugh. And I have never seen any outtakes of Monty Python on anything, like where they just like they break character because they can't, they are just so laughing so hard at each other. Do you know of any outtakes? Because I've never seen anything that from Flying Circus or any of the movies.
I've never seen outtakes, but I do know there was stuff behind the scenes that was going on that made filming hard. Like one of them would, Graham, the one that died young, he would come on drunk a lot, and they'd have to work around that. Like things like that.
Wasn't part of the comedy.
No, it wasn't planned.
Because that was where I was wondering, is how many of the outtakes actually just became the thing they left
the
in the
skit.
movie early. That's the problem when you work with that many funny people. So I did see something recently, and I'll have to see if I'll find it and post it after the show, but there was apparently a bunch of silly things that happened off screen while they were just goofing around with each other while they were doing the Holy Grail, because it was the first big amount of money they've ever been given for a movie or anything like that, even though it was quote unquote low budget. So, but there was all these things, like they were trying to film the scene with the rabbit, that apparently a bunch of things went wrong and all these things happened, and it was in some documentary thing I found on YouTube. I'll see if I can post it again. But good times. So
Kate, go ahead, Craig.
I was going to ask, in the lieu of Monty Python, we've been talking about the people that were in the show. We've talked about the episodes. We've talked about the bits, the movies, all that kind of wonderful stuff. Kate, is there anything that is in that same kind of what we've been talking about, keep it simple comedy, that you are currently in love with today? It feels like in that ballpark of Monty Python. I put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Not like Monty Python, but it's just the simple. I'm into like British game shows right now. So like Taskmaster, if you've seen that.
Wait.
That's what my wife was watching the other day.
With Greg Davies, yeah. So I'm watching that. There's a show called Would I Lie to You, where it's just these comedians trying to lie to each other. There's no prizes, nothing, but it's like trying to guess who's lying and stuff.
There you go.
So I have to say this about game shows, because you know what? I was on a game show once, and it was filmed in Ireland, so I got exposure. So, kind of a big deal. I didn't win anything, but I was on a game show once. But the cool thing that I always thought were watching. So let me calm down because I go into. So when USA, but it's funny watching how game shows, if you watch game shows in the United States, they want you to amp up the personality. They want you to be all over the place and woo, ah. I was watching a game show when I was in Ireland filming. So, when we get back to the hotel, you got a lot of downtime. And so I was watching a game show, and the personality of the people that are on this particular game show, as opposed to what we have here, it's like, oh no, you're wrong. And the guy, the contestant be like, oh darn, okay, maybe next time. Here it'd be like they want you to be all, like, and just overplay it here in the United States.
Turn to 11.
I haven't seen, and I don't know, Kate, you may have seen just the way that the personalities are, as far as the contestants, even the hosts are a little bit more, I guess, proper. They don't act. I have yet to see a game show from like British television or from Ireland or wherever that where the contestants are just bonkers over the top.
Maybe game show is the wrong word, but it's comedians doing it's like comedians doing a game show.
Right,
so
right.
No prizes, but there's one that I really like. It's called 8 out of 10 Cats. And it's just like this group of comedians. It's like SNL. You have your core group of comedians, and they'll talk about like the daily news and stuff, and try to guess what happened that week.
Oh.
Or there's 8 out of 10. Or there's this one that's 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, where you have comedians playing a smart person game. And
okay.
So yeah, you have to guess like a 9-letter word or do math. And it's just the way they act. It's not as dramatic, but it's hilarious.
Right.
Like little things they'll do, the words they'll make up, or they'll just not care about the game at all. And be like, no,
completely take a tangent.
They'll be like, what's your answer? Yeah, I didn't know it. I don't know.
Yeah. I'll tell you. There's one game show that I saw over there that I would love to see come over, get ported to the United States, and you would never think that this would actually be like a game show that would be entertaining to watch, but it's suspenseful. Those games that where you drop the quarter in and it goes down, and then you got to try to push the other coins off to try to get all the prizes and everything. They made a game show about that, and I'm serious. You get sucked into it, and you are glued to this game, and it's like all they're doing is playing this game. They're answering questions to get the coins, and then they put them in, and they're trying to push all the other stuff over so they can win prizes and money and everything. It's just, I can't even remember what the name of that game show is, but it was absolutely awesome.
Coin drop, real simple. Boing, done. I got a show here for you that I think actually had some Monty Python vibes before we get to those comments, as I do see them now. I missed them. What We Do in the Shadows strikes me very, very Monty Python vibes. Maybe it's because they are British and moved to the Queens basically or whatever. And but I hadn't watched that show. I finally had time, and because it kept coming up on my Hulu thing, going, "You will like this show," constantly, right? I finally sat down and watched a bunch of it, so I'm like almost caught up to this season, and I was dying laughing in that same ballpark where it felt like the British Office a little bit, but it's vampires and it feels very deadpan humored like that. The one bit that I can't get out of my head because it was just too perfect, and this struck me as very Monty Python-ish. It was the vampires got in a feud with the werewolves that were in town, and it was like from the first season, the vampires choose the venue as basically on a roof of an abandoned building. And they go, choose your weapons, and the werewolf is like, I just choose my bare fists. I'm going to kick your ass kind of thing, right? And the vampire that was doing it walks over to a chest, and there's a dog toy in the thing. So he starts squeaking it, and he goes, hey, is this the right weapon? Squeak, squeak, squeak. And he throws it over the ledge of the building, and kills the guy. So vampires win.
So it looks like we got some on the YouTube, we got D Weaver
Mm-hmm.
and saying, "What's up, Craig? What's up, Tommy? What's up, Kate?
This guy right here.
Yeah. And then he says, "I expect full explanations from all three."
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Did I read that right?
All three on what?
Yeah. And then he said, "Just kidding." And then the shout outs should be about mooses.
Mooses. Maybe we're maybe that's the behind the scenes tape that we were talking about here from
Maybe. So D Weaver, please elaborate while we still got a little bit of time left so we can understand what you're trying to say. But for those of you who are tuning in, what's that?
The mooses I get.
Okay. Well, then explain the mooses to me.
The beginning of the Holy Grail.
Mooses.
If you watch
Okay.
the credits,
Okay.
the beginning of the Holy Grail. And
Oh.
they start talking about someone gets sacked, and then that person got sacked because of things, and there was llamas in everyone's name. It's that subtle stuff.
This is subtle stuff. Exactly.
There's just it's one of those movies that
Thank you, Kate.
We can watch so many times, and you can still pick up little things each time. I've watched the movie Airplane probably about 5,000 times in my life, and every time I watch that movie, I find some dumb little thing in the background, or I hear it all of a sudden as it's playing in the background on the main audio. Monty Python movies are that same way, which is why I was trying to find them before this show, so I could talk more about it.
Well, I got Apple TV. I'm gonna actually go and check this out because it's been a while and I need to be a little bit more versed. But yeah, I definitely want to. So, do we know D Weaver? Is that one of our new fans from today? I don't know.
I'm not sure. Thanks,
D Weaver. How do we know you? and we're glad that you're here. We're glad you're here, and we're glad that you're part of our random fandom family. Okay, so I'm going to ask this question completely off topic. Completely off topic. And Kate, since you're a super fan, I want to call our fans something. I don't want to call them. We were talking about this before about like calling them cast members. And I want to give everybody. So at first I was like, let's call them Fando or Rando Fandos, which can sound a little creepy. And then I was like, well, we can do a little Star Wars thing and call them, Fandalorians. That's cool.
Yep.
But what do you think? Do you think that the fans need a nickname? Do you want a nickname there, Kate? Since you're always here with us.
I'm the worst person to ask.
I've been wanting to put it out there, but it's just I want to give ownership of the show to our fans as well, because you're the ones that actually make it so we can actually do this show. So it's and the reason why we want to do this show is because of the people that we met today. You, Kate, obviously, because you're always there. You're always talking to us while we're there. We're sorry we're not on Mondays anymore.
We'll be there for you to record on Mondays.
Yes,
listen to the recording on Mondays.
but by all means, please, still chime in and everything. But we'd like to have you on again, especially because you have mentioned a camera collection. And again, this is about everything that people collect and fandoms and stuff like that. But is that the haunted one?
Yeah.
So apparently we need to talk about this. So we got to have you back on at least to talk about your camera collection and the haunted camera and what makes you believe that it's haunted. And you know what? I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to let the listeners dwell on that for a while. They're going to be like, we need to find out what's with Kate's camera. And we're like, well, I got to see if it's going to be on.
We'll get our own ghost investigation going on here, like Kate said she also does now because of the camera, right?
Oh, no, I did ghost stuff.
Have you been on a ghost hunt, Kate?
I've been on many.
Have you been to Rolling Hills in Bath, New York?
Yeah.
I've been there.
And I was at a 4-story asylum in West Virginia.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There you go.
Actually, where I live is the area. There's a building that they turned into like condos and stuff. Used to be an insane asylum.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure nothing happens.
I'm sure nothing happens.
You live on campus, Tom. You haven't seen anything?
Okay, so
Good time.
Kate,
Tangent.
we are getting to the end of our show. Kate, I am grateful for you for coming on to our show and talking Monty Python. I apologize for my lack of knowledge, but I always want to have my responses be spontaneous. I do very little, and I say this all the time. I do very little research. Craig is the research guru when it comes to this stuff, you know. So, but look, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Mary Flynn
posted.
You know, Mary Flynn Ghost Stories would be a fun episode. Yes, it would. And you know what? Maybe we'll have Mary tell ghost stories.
Just to be this person, we did have Gene on a few weeks ago talking about Nickelodeon's "Are You Afraid of the Dark?" Does that count?
Are they real ghost stories?
Start the Midnight Society to tell.
Yes.
So, but no, that would be a fun episode.
Submitted for your approval. And they would, So, Kate, do you have anything that you would like to say to the fans out there? Do you have anything? This is your time for shameless self plugs.
I don't really have a pitch. Just here to hang out with you.
Well, we were very happy to have you here.
Yes, and we want you to continue to be a fan. We want you to spread the word and get it out there. And when are we going to convince you to come and dance with us again?
No.
Come on.
Denied.
Come on.
She's going to bring her spooky camera and watch you instead.
You don't have to perform with us. You just
you're like Kate dancing.
Oh God. Come on.
Good times.
Come on. All right. Well, everybody, I don't know. Do we have a topic for next week's show?
It depends on how much you like that idea I pitched right before the show on the friends I have. They are ready to go for next Sunday.
Oh, so we are going to do a wrestling show?
No, that's the Magic the Gathering one I was
telling you about. Oh, the Magic the Gathering. So, you know what? I will do, you know what? Maybe I'll do some research because I have never, ever played
I'm going to have to do some research
Gathering.
for that one, too, because as much as I love my buddy Will, him and his other friend are apparently the Magic the Gathering equivalent of Dungeon Master. I'm going to have to figure out the pieces of that puzzle. So... But that's why we have people on like Kate to be the experts that we interview and we have fun and chit chat and goof around. That is what TC Random Fandom is all about. So is there anything the two of you would add before I give us our outro? Because I still haven't recorded one. High quality show.
Kate, low budget. The floor is yours. Take the floor.
I'm good, but if you guys ever want to chat again.
Oh, by all means. But you know what? Honestly, our door is always open. If you, like I said, we'd like to talk to you again about the camera collection. We have not done a collection show yet, so I think that would be a good start.
Or ghost stories.
Or ghost stories, or we can tell
it's
some
kind
ghost
of
stories
ghost
about
cameras. So. All right, anybody, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you coming on tonight, Kate. It was been fun. So we're gonna, obviously, Kate's here. She's been a fan of the show. She loves listening to, for some reason, Tommy and I shenanigans every week. So if you're a fan of the show, like anybody we met happened today at the Rochester Anime Con, I happened to see Tommy doing the emceeing duties for the cosplay contest. It was a great time for us. If you're anybody that listened to the show, please message us on any of the social media stuff at TC Random Fandom. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear what you're passionate about. And we want to invite you on the show so we can have some fun and maybe get your fandom out there to some people that don't know about that kind of fandom, which is the other wonderful perk we get about changing everything around here every week and having fun. So make sure you follow us at TC Random Fandom on all social media and catch us on YouTube. And please make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and comment so that we can get this out to more people. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you much, everybody. Have a great evening. See you next Sunday. Cheers.
Good night, everybody. I'm doing weird stuff again.